The budget presentation to the National Assembly expectedly came with various positive and negative reactions, including that of the opposition party, PDP. On this, I'm being joined by Dr. Uche Uwaleke, an associate professor of finance. Take a listen. Dr. Uche Uwaleke, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's begin with your assessment, your reaction to the 6.08 trillion naira budget presented by the president. What's your entire view on this?
On balance, we have a very good document to work on for 2016. I say on balance because some people have also picked holes in the document. There is no perfect document, but on the overall, I think the assumptions are largely realistic. It is, if you like, implementable. The budget is implementable.
I'll come to that, but for right now, it has been tagged a budget of change. How is this going to meet the expectations of Nigerians? Don't forget, the PDP mentioned in a statement that the budget is meant to mortgage the future of Nigerians. What's your take on that?
Yes, okay. I talked about the assumptions, the baseline assumptions. Let's even start with the benchmark oil price of $38 per barrel. You also have the output of 2.2 million barrels per day, exchange rate of 197 naira to the dollar, and then the fiscal deficit of about 2.16% of GDP. That's because the size of the budget is 6.08, as you have said.
Okay.
The expected revenue, federally collected revenue, is about 3.8. So that leaves with a deficit of about 2.2 trillion. And that deficit is going to be largely financed by borrowing, which is why the PDP, which is the major opposition party, it's saying that it's worried about the huge debt component of the appropriation bill. But again, that deficit figure of 2.16% is within the 3% provided for by the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, which says that the deficit shouldn't be more than 3%. And if you also check the framework, which is for a 3-year period, 2016, 2017, 2018, you will discover that by 2017, we're having a percentage that is less than the 2.16%. As a matter of fact, less than 2%, 2017 to less than that. So we expect that going forward over the 3-year period, that the debt component will substantially reduce. Why did I say the oil benchmark is realistic? Maybe I should talk about it.
Good.
Yes, largely for two reasons. As I said earlier on, some people have adopted a pessimistic view about the oil price trend, and of course, for obvious reasons, volatility has been very high, and oil price has persistently been on the decline. Reputable investment banks, international banks like Morgan Stanley, and even some rating services like Standard & Poor's, have adopted a pessimistic view. But again, if you also look at the forecast by some other reliable energy sources, such as the International Energy Administration, that is based in France, the agency is talking about an oil price hitting $80 per barrel by 2020, but not, getting as far as $100 per barrel. But the one that's even of interest to me is the Energy Information Administration of the United States that talked about an upper and lower limit of $35 per barrel and $66 per barrel. That by next year, 2016, is going to hover around $35 per barrel and $66. So if you look at that, the midpoint of that is around $50 per barrel, and we have adopted $38 per barrel.
That raises some concerns.
Yeah, skewing towards the lower limit. So that's a conservative figure. If the price is going to be between 35 and 66, and you are taking 38, so that's a conservative figure. So you now discover that from the midpoint, you have a margin of safety of like $12 per barrel. And just recently, too, I read the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources talking about a likely increase in the demand for oil by about 1.2 million barrels every day in 2016. Okay, so that is also expected to rub off positively on the price. And if anybody should know, you will agree with me that the Minister of Petroleum Resources should know, because he chaired the last meeting of the OPEC members in Vienna, the one they held, I think, on the 4th of December this year. So if it tells us demand is likely to increase, because the problem with this plummeting price we are having is because of weak demand on one side and oversupply on the other.
True.
So they have looked at all these factors, and they think that $38 per barrel is realistic. And I want to believe that. The one I consider a little rather, if you say, ambitious, is the output, the oil output of 2.2 million. And that's because in recent times we have not really met. It's been a case of adverse output variances since 2013. In 2013, we had adverse output variance. In 2014, we provided for about 2.4, and the average for the year was 1.9, the actual that we produced.
Yes.
Yes. This year again, we made a provision of about 2.3 million. But as of September, we are having an average of 2.1. So we have not really met the output targets, which is why I think.
And is it still possible for us to meet up with that projection?
Yes, because we are still, the challenge is still there. We are still tackling the challenge. The quantity shocks we've been having from, coming from oil thefts and pipeline vandalism.
Yes.
These things are still there. They have not been eliminated. And that's why I think they could have adopted maybe a slightly lower figure than 2.2. Like
what do you have in mind?
Anything lower than 2.2. As I said, the average, if they did 1.9 and they did 2 million barrels, just to make sure we don't have that adverse, output variance. The other baseline assumption is the exchange rate of 197. Yeah. And in the medium-term expenditure framework, you find that 197 all through the 3 years, 2016, 2017, and 2018. So what that tells me, my interpretation of that is that this administration is not having any intention to devalue the Naira, in spite of calls that the Naira should be devalued. And I think I stand by that. I am not in support of getting the Naira devalued. Some people argue that that it has to be something of necessity, and they will even cite some countries that have done that. Recently, Iraq devalued its currency. It's also an oil-producing country. It's dinar, but just by 1.37%. And Iraq's budget for 2016 is 105 trillion dinar. Okay, down from about 19 trillion dinar in 2015. But that's not the kind of figure we want to be hearing in this country. 100 and something. Our budget is 6.06 trillion. Yes. Okay, so it gets to a point where, in my view, if you continue to devalue, the process will never come to an end. We devalued in November last year from 155 naira to the dollar to 168 naira to the dollar. In February this year again, we had cause to devalue when the CBN said they were no longer going to sell to the banks. They were now going to play at the interbank market. When they shut that Dutch auction window, so the exchange rate officially became devalued to 197. So right now we just have the interbank and the bureau de change. Let's forget even the parallel market. Okay, so if we devalue again, the process will continue. As long as the oil price keeps dropping. So you find out that you have a situation where one day somebody will go to the president and say, didn't you promise you were going to make dollar equal to the naira? The president would say no, he never said so. And the president would say, I think it is possible. Let us make 1 naira equal to $1. And the president will ask how, and the president would say, let's devalue the naira to $1 equals 1,000 naira. If you devalue the naira from $1 to 1,000 naira, the next day they tell the CBN governor to redenominate the naira. Remove the 3 zeros. You understand? By the time you remove the 3 zeros, 1 naira becomes equal. So, but that doesn't. I wonder whether that is the agenda of those who are saying we should devalue and devalue, so that you devalue up to 1,000 and then you come back to redundant.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate the words of the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Mr. Odoma, but that's after we go on this break. We're still with Dr. Uche Owaleke looking at the budget and, of course, reactions on it. Please stay with us.
In reviving the economy, it requires both a carrot and a stick approach. You've got to be firm in certain areas and you've got to be flexible in other areas. The President appears to have put before the Parliament a budget that is sufficient to deal adequately with revival of the economy, ensuring security and safety of Nigerians, and also ensuring that we keep those critical jobs that would aid the growth of any nation.